First, tell us how difficult or easy it's been this year thanks to the pandemic and what kind of crop we have.
Fortunately, from the pandemic perspective, the impact was fairly minor on the growers, which was the good news. The bad news is we had a severe drought in southeastern Massachusetts, which is where most of the cranberries grow, and that caused some major impacts to the crop. And as a result, the crop is down from the August estimate.
And as I understand it, because of a delay in the onset of cooler weather, which obviously helps the berries turn red, we also might see a later picking season. Is the upshot of all of this that cranberries are more expensive this Thanksgiving?
No, the price that the consumer pays really isn't impacted by what's going on at the farm level. And we are seeing other impacts from climate change. The harvest season tends to be delayed because our falls are warmer. So generally mid to late September is when harvest starts in Massachusetts, and that gets pushed out now into October because our Septembers have been quite warm and the cranberries need the cool nights to bring on the nice dark red color. And in the winter, they've been warmer winters, and so sometimes the vines come out of their winter dormancy, but they come out too early. And winter isn't quite done yet, so we have some cold weather in March, and that can really affect the plants as they're starting to come out a little bit too early. So the seasons have definitely been impacted by climate change.
Now, you say that cranberries are price inelastic no matter what happens, but why aren't we seeing increased prices, Brian?
I don't know, because I'm not an economist, but from what we have seen is that the supply of the cranberries can impact the price that the grower receives for the fruit. So when the supplies are tighter, they tend to get higher returns, but that does not seem to carry over to the consumer, which is good for the consumer, I suppose. And those costs are probably picked up, I would imagine, by the manufacturer or somewhere in that middle.
Or it suggests the consumer is always paying more than he should. But either way, the price stays stable, which would be, I guess, a good news for people who are used to paying a certain amount. Is the industry, though, under a long-term threat because of climate change based on will it have to change its practices? Are there concerns about the way this farming is done when we think about the future and sustainability?
As time goes on, certainly here in Massachusetts, the growers will need to make some changes and adaptations, which they're already starting to do. And looking longer term, we'll have more challenges probably as the weather warms. We'll probably have more rot come into the cranberries. There'll be different harvest techniques. So there's certainly going to be some changes, but it's certainly not dire. I mean, the growers are very reactive, very innovative, and they'll do what they need to do to move things forward. But it's going to take time, it's going to take resources, and certainly growing cranberries for the farmer is not getting any cheaper. It's certainly becoming more costly and more challenging to deliver the same amount of cranberries.
And of course, Brian, a lot of your farmers are part-time. They need to be. It's a necessity for them to be part-time, but also it's difficult to raise capital. What are the conditions like for that? And is there ever the suggestion that maybe some private equity company or something will just come in and buy up a whole tranche of farms?
I mean, that's certainly possible. And a lot of the farms in Massachusetts are smaller, so there's some that are part-time farmers, but everyone, no matter what the size, they struggle with capital. And these infrastructure changes that they need to make are quite expensive. And if the prices that they're receiving for the fruit are low, then their ability to attain that capital is challenging. And we've been living with that for quite a few years now. Unfortunately, we're starting to see an uptick in the prices that the growers are receiving for their fruit. So we're hoping that trend continues, which will allow them to have more opportunities to get some loans to help them get the infrastructure that they need for their cranberry bogs. But it is possible that other companies could come in who look to invest in cranberries. But in Massachusetts, where all the growers are family-owned small farms.